Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to run through very quickly the types of music publishing agreements, if you like.
Yes.
So first type of agreement, we're going to talk about Songwriter Agreement. Okay, that's generally used to refer to a situation where a writer assigns to the music publisher 100% of their copyright ownership, usually in exchange for receiving writer royalties in return. If an advance is paid, then as the writer royalties are earned, which are generally 50% of most income types, except not performance, because you're getting your writer's share directly from the society. Those royalties go toward earning back the advance. I would say that in today's world, a deal where you give up 100% of your copyright is a little less common than some of the other types of agreements, like what I'll talk about next, the co-publishing agreement, which is more common and is more favorable to the writer than what would be like a songwriter agreement. A co-publishing agreement means that you are assigning 50% generally of your copyright ownership to the publisher and the right to administer 100% of the copyright. So what happens in that instance, the publisher is still licensing and dealing with the copyright in a similar way, but when it comes to paying royalties, the publisher is paying 75% of the income, most income types it's collecting to the writer or crediting it against an advance. Except in the public performance space, on the publisher's share of performance, the publisher's dividing that. That's a 50-50 split because the writer has already gotten their writer royalties directly. So that's more favorable to the writer than the songwriter agreement I mentioned. And then another type of agreement is an administration agreement. There, the writer is retaining 100% of their copyright ownership. So the publisher is just administering it. Usually that one's for a period of time. You know, I may administer for 5 years, let's say, or 5 years or until I recoup the advance that we paid to you or something like that. And in that instance, the publisher still licenses and collects income, but keeps an administration fee because the publisher doesn't have a copyright ownership share. We're not continuing to own things for a long time. It's more like I don't know, renting the baby or something like that.
Babysitting.
Yes.
Babysitting versus adoption.
There you go. And in that situation, the administration fee can vary. It can be, you know, from, you know, 10% if it's a very established person who may not be getting an advance even, up to maybe 25% if it's not as established and they're getting a bigger advance relative to their current earnings. It really varies. You know, 20% might be a normal administration fee. It depends on the situation. And the final type of agreement is what's called a sub-publishing agreement. And that's the one you're just sending your baby off to boarding school in some foreign land for a period of time. It's like an administration agreement, but the writer has retained the right, their own administration rights in, say, the US or sometimes the US and Canada, but need someone to help them collect foreign. Because in that instance, there's all those uses that are happening in all the different music rights societies all around the world. And it really would be very difficult for a songwriter to collect in foreign territories, even if they were set up in the US with their own operation. Very established writers who do keep, you know, have people on staff and administer for themselves still often have a publisher representing them in international territories.